Okay, you guys are now live.
Thank you, Krista. It is 4:30. I'm going to call the meeting of the Dunn County Standing Committee, Judiciary and Law to order. My name is Jim Tripp. I'm the chair of the committee. Also at the meeting tonight are committee members Bob Bauer, Mike Rogers, Carl Vandermill, and Jim Zons, and Chair Dave Bartlett. What did I miss? We also have a number of staff, and their names I think should be are on the screen, and I assume they will introduce themselves at the appropriate time during their reports. First order of business, Katie, you got the roll called? I assume. Let me see if I can find my agenda. Approval of the minutes from the October 26th meeting. They were enclosed in your packet. I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Move we approve.
I'll second.
Carl. And Bob. Carl moved, Bob seconds to approve the meeting minutes of October 26th. Any corrections or changes, additions?
I noticed that it listed the date of the next meeting as November. I think we canceled that. I don't know if that needs to be corrected, but if it does, that's something.
We did set that meeting date and we did cancel it. I don't know, what's the procedure here? Anybody know?
Probably be safest to amend it to this date.
Make those changes then.
Probably when we set a meeting date. Well, no point in making it more complicated than it is. All right, we will change the meeting date to December 28th. Any other changes or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none. And Jim Zons, you'll have to speak up because you're so still. I just don't understand how you do that.
Yeah, I will speak up so you can notice me.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion to adopt accept the minutes as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Don't see any. Motion carries. Public comment. Krista, I don't think we had anybody registered with for the public, did we?
No public comments.
Thank you. Staff reports. We'll start out with Sarah Benedict, CJCC. Sarah, you are up.
All right. Well, good evening. I sent a written report with the packet, so if there's any questions, I'd be glad to address those. I do want to give a couple of updates. One was the block grant that was available through West Central Wisconsin Planning Commission. We have been invited to submit a full proposal for transitional housing. So we're going to be working on that in the near term. And then a second update is the DOJ reached out to us with the emergency coronavirus funding to ask if we have any unmet needs. So we have a meeting set for Wednesday at noon to discuss our needs and to request funding if we have such needs. So those are the two updates. Any questions on anything I've reported, written or verbal?
The grant application that's going into West Central Regional Planning is for multi-hundreds of thousands of dollars.
It is. It was several different projects. The total was about 770,000. But they were really just interested in our transitional housing piece, not all of the juvenile crime reduction and delinquency work with the Botvin life skills. They weren't necessarily interested in that. And they weren't interested in kind of reducing barriers to treatment, but for transitional housing, that was one area that they would like us to submit a full proposal.
That really sounds good.
Yes.
And DOJ, did you dig up some needs for additional COVID funding?
We're going to have a meeting Wednesday at noon to discuss those needs. The first round, we went ahead with the courtroom upgrades for IT, and that project's underway right now. So we might have some unmet needs there. Otherwise, it would have to be related to the operation of the courthouse, the operation of the jail for safety for inmates and for staff, and for safety for law enforcement. Those are the three areas that we will be examining.
Great. Anybody have any questions for Sarah regarding CJCC? I'm assuming that end of the year, and most people put it in their reports, and I think you did as well. Budget is pretty much on track.
Yep, budget is going to be less expenditures this year due to kind of restricted operations. So we'll have money turning back to the county. And then we did work to try to expend our grants fully, but the reentry grant, we will be turning over some monies there as well.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah. Anybody else? Anything for Sarah? If not, thank you, Sarah. District Attorney, Andrea.
Hi, nice to see you all virtually. We had a good Christmas. So we've had a busy couple of months since the last time we met. The homicide in November took a fair amount of my time, and it was a really good experience working with the Dunn County Sheriff's Office. It was very impressed with the investigators and all of the sergeants and staff that worked extra long hours those first few days to try to get everything done. I appreciated that they called some assistance from DCI, having them on board and having the technical support. Actually had an analyst who could, come and download phones within, the first day of obtaining these individuals and their cell phones, and was really beneficial, and I think really put us on a correct start, early on in the, really early on. And they did numerous interviews with these suspects. So very, very good, but also usually I'll probably have those transcribed. And so there's going to be a lot of transcription costs for those trials, given the amount of interviews that were done, hours and hours of interviews. So, but it was a good experience working with them as much as you can anytime there's a homicide case, I guess. As far as COVID in my office, we've been immune up until the last week. I've got 3 staff members out, 1 with a positive and 2 with close family contacts with someone who's tested positive. So trying to struggle to get everything done because it's also quite busy in our office right now. Barb Landy, our victim witness coordinator, is retiring on December 30th. Will be her last day. And so been trying to transition with a new staff coming on board. Hired a victim witness coordinator who was a part-time victim witness assistant in Eau Claire County. Her name is Jamie Kraus. And then hired 3 other staff. We basically have a brand new victim witness staff. And the 3 others, all that have criminal justice background, any experience, working with our PROTECT system or victim witness. And so there's a large learning curve. But thankfully, Jamie, coming from Eau Claire County, is up to speed and will be a good leader for that new staff. Very sad to see Barb go. She's, built this victim witness program into what it is today. She worked for the county for 43 years, was our victim witness professional 2020 for the state, and just has skills that I just will think will be irreplaceable. So I'm very much going to miss her, and she's been, a good friend and mentor and leader for our office. And so, but change can be good too. So, and she's ready to retire and does not want a big party or won't be coming to the board meeting. Just kind of wants to have a last day and be out the door. So busy with trying to get those new staff up to speed and So that's busy. As far as I think all of our trials in December were rescheduled. So spent a lot of time. I completely understand it with COVID, but we spend a lot of time and effort getting individuals served and spend money to get them served, and then have to reserve them with a new date. And so I'm very apprehensive about 2021. I think we have a lot of catch up to do. We already have some trials out into May and into, I think, even the summer months, and some of my staff have reported back-to-back trials. And it's going to be, I think, the competing of trials, because they're stacked. Right now, well, sometimes the judges will put 2 or 3 or even 4 jury trials on the same date, and we don't know until 2 weeks before which trial is going forward. So my office has to subpoena and prepare, like, all 4 of those trials are going forward, and so it's really kind of a big endeavor, and I'm anticipating 2021 will be very, very busy and expensive as well, given the amount of trials that have been pushed out in 2020. Another issue has come up with, I think I've brought this to your attention before, the sheriff's office was looking at trying to find a good way to provide data to my office. Now the police department is having issues because they're spending a bunch of time and money copying files. As I think I said before, there's now body camera footage, squad footage, transport to the jail, video of witnesses, cell phone downloads for multiple individuals. And those usually need to go on flash drives, and flash drives are not cheap, and they take a lot of time to download. And so the Maumee Police Department has wanted us to start doing the downloading. I don't have the personnel or time to be downloading files. Their proposal was to put a Menominee Police Department computer in our office, and then we would have to go onto that computer to find those files, upload them, download them to a disk, and then copy them for our office, and then copy them for defense. That's just something that's not feasible. Given the staff that I have now, I have a person who runs our front desk, answers the phone, answers the door, does our discovery, and we don't even have a copier. We just have a burner from one disk to the next. So running into some technology issues. I think we've been with many agencies. It's a problem that's not being, we don't have a solution for. Keep, I guess. Some other counties have had their IT department build the server and put it in the district attorney's office, and then all of the data can be stored there. But a lot of these files have to be stored for years and years and years and years and years, and that we don't have the storage for that. The other option is to hire an outside agency to store all of this data, but that costs money. So running into another issue with that. I think it's going to be an issue, but I'm trying to work with the police department on a way to make it feasible. And that's all I have.
Questions for Andrea? The DA. Mike?
Yeah, can we use any of the COVID assist money to do some of the computer work and IT work associated with what needs to be done, or is that not an option?
I think I've been a part of those meetings. I think we've been focusing on AV equipment and video conferencing from the courtrooms. I don't know if that's a possibility or not, but I've mentioned it. But I guess we'll have to see. I think the meeting's tomorrow or.
Andrea, you mentioned in your report that a number of trials got pushed from this year to next year, 2021, and there would be an expense. Does some of the budgeted, does some of the funding, can that follow those trials into next year? How's that going to work?
Yeah, I mean, I can't really do a carryover request because they're not, because it's, I just don't think a carryover would work.
I don't think so either, but what I was thinking is if there were trials that normally would have been held in 2020 and were not held, if there were some savings from that, that would be turned back into the general fund at the end of the year, right?
Right.
I wonder if we could, it might be that we're going to look at something like a request out of contingency for next year to cover those trials that are taking place in 2021 rather than would have taken place this year. See where I'm going with this? I'm trying to figure out how we can balance funding with moving the funding to kind of follow the work.
Sure. And I don't have a definitive cost, so I'll certainly keep that in mind. But you never know. A trial could settle. Usually, all homicides go to trial, but I never know. Too, I had a meeting with the judges today, and sometimes they just get set for trial because the defense attorneys are trying to kind of drag their feet and see if they can get a better deal. And maybe when we have a few trials, then they'll settle. But right now, it looks like a very busy 2021.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anything for the DA? Don't see anything. Thank you, Andrea.
Thank
you. Next staff report, emergency management. Melissa, that would be you.
Hello.
And there she is.
Thank you very much. I think for the budget for 2020, we're doing very well for the emergency management portion. I did want to make note that Marie Marty, who had been serving as our program assistant in emergency management for the last 2.5 years, has transferred back to the sheriff's office. So that position is vacant at this time. We're going to be interviewing next week for that position. So we're hoping to get someone in there as soon as possible and get them up to speed. And hopefully that does not affect our grant, because most of the salaries for the program assistant and the coordinator are grant funded. So we want to make sure that we are, meeting all the needs and requirements and expending that money. So just wanted to touch on that first. Other than that, we've been busy assisting public health with the, COVID testing site that we have here in Dunn County, and focus testing that we did at some of the long-term care facilities. And then on the, now since the vaccine has been released, we're kind of working with them on the possible distribution of the vaccine and how that could look for Dunn County and Dunn County's residents. And also PPE, we continue to assist with the needs for PPE for the different facilities in Dunn County. Other than that, it was just basically finishing up a lot of the grant work and stuff that we had been working on. We had our LEPC meeting, which we're required to have at least one, and we had our second one for 2020. However, the LEPC chair would like us to have another one again in March. So we're going to have that. And that's kind of based on that whole, the vaccine distribution might be a little bit closer to the public at that point, or businesses within Dunn County. So he kind of wants to stay on top of that. So we'll be having another LEPC meeting. Other than that, I think it's kind of just, getting that program assistant position filled and continuing to assist with what we can with the public health, PPE, possible vaccine distribution, and then also the testing sites. That's really about all that I have for the emergency management portion.
Questions regarding emergency management? Carl, go ahead.
I'm wondering what the source of information will be about vaccine rollout locally.
Well, we'll definitely wait until we have some, valid information that we're going to get, through our public health office, through the state EOC. They've been, giving us some information through the state EOC has been sharing that, of course, with the public health office, and then, of course, with us. And so that's kind of what we've been using as our information source, and then how that's going to tier out through the citizens for Dunn County.
Will that come through the Public Health Department, County Manager's Office?
I think it's going to probably come through the public health office.
Okay. Anyone else? Carl, go ahead.
Completely different question. The recent hack of federal government agencies included some information that the hackers might have gotten some control over like power facilities. Have you heard anything about that that might impact us locally?
I have not heard a lot that would impact us locally or any information that has come kind of directly through the state of Wisconsin or even through, our local kind of community here or the West Central region that we have through emergency management. There's been some small briefings and different things on, some of the different attacks and things that have happened in the last couple weeks, but nothing that would directly impact Dunn County.
Okay.
Great. I do have one question about your report. It's in the kind of in the middle of your coordinating maintenance of data for Cameo and Whoppers, and I found Whoppers, but the Cameo, the only thing I could find is it sounds like Christmas greetings from the cast of Below Decks. So can you?
No, it's not.
Well, I assumed it wasn't, but I could not.
Those are both programs that we use in emergency management for the tracking of different facilities in Dunn County that have to report what what kind of chemicals they have in their facilities, where it's stored, how it's stored, different things like that. And then we use the information that we put in there for mapping plumes if we would have an incident. Okay. What do we have within that plume that could be affected? How many daycare facilities? How many schools are within that plume? And those are the programs that we use to kind of help us plan, and then also that we would use in an emergency for evacuations and different things like that. So, and it's always the end of the year when they, people are required to update their tier 2s and things like that. So all that information is kind of coming in at us, and they have, a deadline to get that in. And then we have to do some follow-up sometimes, because once in a while there's a few that don't get their information completed, and so we need to follow up. And sometimes it does change. Maybe they're no longer a reporting facility, and we don't need to keep that on file. But that's what those programs are for.
I assumed it had something to do with hazardous material.
Sure.
Yep. Not celebrity greetings.
No.
Other questions about emergency management? Communications?
Communications, the budget there looks well in that, we'll probably be turning over $100,000 back at the end of the year. We were short-staffed for most of the year and, had some slight concern about hiring during COVID because of the training situation that we have in the communication center. The training has to be completed, in real close proximity. So we kind of held off on that as long as we could. So we will have some funds there. So the budget is pretty good for the emergency communications side. We did, because we were unable to attend trainings because most of them were canceled and some were virtual in the end, but we decided to do our own kind of dispatch in service, and we did it virtually. Krista was a great help in setting that up for us, but Brad Jorgensen, who serves as our supervisor in the communications center, really spearheaded this in service, and we set up several different topics, that impact the communication center, and we had speakers come in, and they were all virtual, and it was all done very safely, and I think it was a huge success, and I think we'll try to do that more often. I think is, it's always good to get out and to network with other, communication centers and things like that. But this worked very well. And I think we'll try it again. And, it just gets the dispatchers some good information, and it's real good local information. We used some of the staff from human services, from human resources, and things like that. So we really used a lot of Dunn County departments, and we gained a lot of good information. So that was something that we hadn't done before, and I think it was a great success. So
Oh, good to hear.
yeah, the other thing we just continue to work on is tower sites. We're replacing repeaters and things like that. We have a couple more to go for the Dunn Fire EMS channel. And then I have generators on there. And I did want to talk a little bit about our generator. I think it was probably about 6 months ago I mentioned that we had an unexpected expense at the generator that we have at the Menominee Tower site. And that generator actually came from the old jail that was just at the bottom of the hill there from our tower site, the old 714 17th Street jail. So that generator is quite old, but we repurposed it, and it's been doing its, thing, but it's starting to get to that point where we are, it's has some expenses attached to it. And so I just didn't want to bring that up, that we did have some about 6 months ago. And I did just have another $400 or $500 bill to replace some things on it. So just want to bring that to your attention. We were able to, still stay within budget because, like you said, we did have some, that money in our personnel line item. So we're not going to be over budget by any means, but just wanted to bring it to your attention that that generator is starting to have a few issues here and there. Other than that, just staffing issues like every other department has with COVID. Being a 24/7 is just a big hit on us when we have, a couple staff members go out and have to quarantine or are ill. But we've made it through so far, and we're hopeful that we'll continue to be healthy and safe. So other than that, I don't have anything else for communications.
The generator that you were talking about, is that going to need replacement soon?
It probably should be looked at soon. I did ask probably about a year ago about what it would cost to replace it. And they said for the actual size unit that we have up there, they said it would cost around $30,000. Well, that was really expensive. So what I need to do is probably a study to see if we really need one that size. We used it and we took it because it was, in the jail, and we didn't, the jail didn't need it anymore. But so what I probably need to do is a study to see what size we actually need, because I don't want to spend $30,000 if we sure don't need that size of a generator. So.
Okay, thank you. Anything for Melissa, either in communications or emergency management?
How is staffing, if I may?
Go ahead, Dave.
How is your staffing now? Are you fully staffed, or are you still way behind?
No, we have 2 vacancies. We hope to fill them soon.
Okay.
One is budgeted, and I think not to be filled until April 1st, possibly. And the other one, I would like to try and get that filled a little bit sooner than that.
So those 2 vacancies are in the budget for next year.
Correct. Yep. And we hope to get those filled.
And I guess just a comment on the generator isn't in the budget next year, but I would advise you to find out what you need so we can consider it for next year.
Sure. Yeah, I will. I'll follow up with them and get some information. Definitely because of its age, some of the parts are a little bit harder to find. They are still able to acquire them, which is good. But yeah, I'll definitely, talk to the service that has been helping me, and we can work through that. And like you said, kind of do a study to see what we really need to run that site versus the size we have.
Well, early next year will be prioritizing and looking at our goals for capital stuff.
Okay.
And so I guess it would be advantageous to have that information maybe in the first quarter of next year, maybe even the first couple of months. I don't know what.
Sure.
It won't be January, but it could be February or March that we have those discussions.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah, I'll work on that.
Okay.
Thanks for the question, Dave. Thank you, Melissa. Anything else? All right, then moving right along. The medical examiner's report, I don't see Marcy on the screen anywhere. You did get a report and it looks like it's been extremely busy. Somebody help me out here. The medical examiner would be required to report on any death that occurs not in a hospital. Is that correct? Or is there something more to it? Anybody?
They actually sign off on all death certificates in the county.
All of them?
Yep, all of them, whether they're in the hospital or outside the hospital or.
But if a person is in a hospital, for example, or under a doctor's care, I would imagine those are much easier to deal with.
Yeah, those are pretty much, I believe, forwarded to her office for a signature. But
Okay.
I got a message from her. She's in Eau Claire on a case right now, is why she's not in attendance.
Yeah. Well, been very busy. You can tell that just from her report. Thank you, Sheriff, for enlightening me. Who's up next? Sheriff's Department. Go right ahead, Kevin. You can keep right going.
Hopefully I'm unmuted here. My controls aren't working, so I'm trying to use my space bar to.
You're good.
All right. Now, hopefully I can unmute then when I'm done. I submitted my written report. I'll try and hit some highlights. The 2020 budget looks good at this point. We're sitting okay there. Fully staffed. Melissa and I have stole Marie back and forth from each other over the years. She's worked for the county now. She was a dispatcher, then she came to us as a secretary too, and then went back to work for Melissa. Now she's back working for me out front support staff again. And we had a vacancy. One of my full-time secretary twos resigned. She was a longtime county employee of about 20 years, close to 20 years, and took a job for her husband's new business or something along that lines. But it was sad to see her leave, but we stole Marie back from Melissa, and she was able to pick up where she left off a couple of years ago. I have one corrections officer that was positive with COVID, happens to be married to another one of ours, so we lost both of them for a minimum of 14 days. So we're coming near the end of their quarantine. No close contacts with inmates or anything to be too overly concerned with there, but they were inmates and corrections staff were all tested when we did have a positive a couple months ago in one of the blocks, and everybody was negative at that time. And we're doing good right now. We continue to isolate incoming inmates for 14 days before they go in with the general population, so there's less chance of carrying that on. And the one inmate that ended up in the pod had been in our facility for 25 days, I believe. I don't know how it was possible that he would have been COVID positive in there for 25 days, and then finally came down with symptoms and ended up being transported by ambulance. But so that's a case study of all case studies for COVID, I guess. But nobody else seemed to be affected by that one. Our inmate programming has been shut down for most of the year due to COVID. We're looking at bringing at least one volunteer back in to start working on GEDs and things like that inmates have we have a high demand for request that. But one advantage we were able to purchase an additional UV sanitation device. We got the one that it's affectionately referred to as R2D2 because it looks like a little round robot that you move into a room or into a block and plug it in, and it has bright UV, basically like a tanning bed, kills all viruses and infectious diseases in that area. Once we got the one and started using it, we realized how much there was a need for a second one, especially as programming start to wrap up and R2D2 is being used in one section of the jail, and we need to sanitize in between classes and things like that. So we did end up having to buy an additional UV sanitation device. As many of you have seen, I'm sure, I believe you're all included in our news releases now on the homicide that Andrea referred to. That was a very complicated multiple suspect case that we'll probably learn more on as more comes out on that case. But our victim was basically beat to death, stabbed to death by multiple people, and in the meth world, everybody's got a little bit of information, and some people might have a lot of information on their phones, and that's what Andrea was referring to is the abilities of DCI to come in, assist us, download those phones right away, and find out if there's text messages with information going back and forth and things like that. We were kind of short-staffed at the time. I have one investigator out with hip surgery and a couple other staff members at the time out. So we asked DCI to come in and assist us with following up some of the loose ends and stuff that we're at 24 hours straight on this case before most people got to go home and sleep for a couple hours and turn around and come back in and try and pick up where they left off. So DCI's Department of Criminal Investigations from the state was fantastic. Assistance came in and was a huge help. We also utilized the state crime lab to come in and collect and preserve evidence. And that's their specialty. We've got evidence technicians in my office, but this is what those people do every day, day in and day out, and they're very good at it. So they try and make Andrea's job much easier when it comes to a trial, when it comes to evidence and the chain of custody and things like that. So the last thing I'll touch on is we had one squad. In fact, I think he was following up on this homicide case. Hit a deer, totaled the squad, airbag. I think every airbag in the vehicle deployed. We used to have full replacement coverage on a totaled squad. We learned after this that we do not. And so even though the insurance company totaled out the squad, they're only paying us $10,500 for the squad, and we've got to come up with the rest of the money out of our budget to try and replace that squad. So there will be a request coming forward in probably January here to carry over some of our 2020 funds into next year, try and cover those costs. And I'm not sure how you'd like to do it or how you'd like to see that. Insurance is going to pay $10,500 towards it, but we're looking at a total of about $41,000 for setting that vehicle up, putting with lights, radio, and everything else. So we're looking at the cost of the vehicle, and then it's usually about $9,000 to set up a squad, which insurance is not covering. They're covering the part where they tear down the old squad and take the radio and the old lights and everything out of it, but not the build, which is the most expensive part. So you'll be seeing a budget request to carry forward some 2020 funds into 2021 to cover the cost of that. But I think that kind of hits the highlights, and open to any questions.
Bob, go ahead.
Are you looking to go back and do the full insurance again now? Would you go look at the price of that as opposed to doing a $10,000?
Yep, that's would be my preference, but that's out of my control. That happens in the administration's office, not mine.
Dave, go ahead.
A couple of questions on the squad first. That was a 16, so that was probably slated to be replaced this next year or fairly soon, year after.
Yeah, it was an investigator's car, so I don't remember what the mileage was on it. Probably between 80 and 90,000 miles. So we were looking at sitting on that for a couple more years. We weren't
All right.
anticipating replacing it in 2021 by any means. Probably 2022.
Okay. A comment on the insurance for Supervisor Bauer. I believe now the insurance is covering what the value of the vehicle is at the time and not what the replacement value is. So I think that's the difference in what the insurance is, what we've gone to.
Okay,
And then I think we have a pretty good sized deductible also, don't we? So
Yeah, that was
I
a change this year as well. Went from well, we have $1,000 deductible on some claims and a $5,000 deductible on other claims. So that's we
Right.
needed the increase in the budget for 2021 to cover those.
My other question was the DCI, do they come in? Is there an expense to that, or is that something that the state has that just help you out, help, sheriff's departments out when they need it?
Yeah, no, there's no cost to us.
Okay.
For the taxpayers, they're an assisting agency basically, and they have probably 10 local agents out of the Eau Claire office, and if you catch them on the right day, you might get all 10 of them, which is about what we got.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, to come in and help us out and tie up some loose ends for us.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Mike, go ahead.
I'd like to believe that there was a substantial savings on the insurance, and that's why we reduced the coverage down. Do you have any knowledge of that?
I don't. Chairman Bartlett may. I don't know. That would probably be a better question for Mr. Miller or Keith Stry. That wasn't anything that's is discussed at department head level even. And we didn't even know we lost that coverage until this claim. So.
From my recollection, yes, that was looked at and discussed, and there was quite a savings in changing the insurance, and that was changed a few years ago, actually. I believe that even the year that you had 2 or 3 deer hits with the old Crown Vics, it came into play with Sheriff Smith at that time, if I remember right. Maybe Supervisor Tripp might have a better memory than me, but I know it went through admin and was discussed thoroughly.
I would agree. I recall the discussion, but I certainly couldn't come up with any numbers. It's a good question for Patty Isaacson in risk management and Keith Stry. I've got to believe, though, that insurance premiums on the sheriff's cars are going to be pretty expensive no matter what. And, it's kind of a crapshoot. You save some money on premiums and then you pay it back on situations like this, or you pay it ahead on premiums. But I do know that in administration, we spend a fair amount of time listening to reports from risk management folks, and they're generally pretty good about doing their due diligence and taking a look at these numbers.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, it isn't that we have a separate policy on sheriff's department vehicles and another policy on, uh, you know, highway department vehicles, and then another policy on the maintenance department. I believe everything is taken into consideration, and a lot of those vehicles with highway and the sheriff's department are probably because of the time that they're on the road and stuff, are probably expensive insurance vehicles, and that was all. It was all discussed, but frankly, it was a few years ago, and it probably should be looked at again, and I'm sure it will be. Those things are usually brought up from time to time. I know Patty has a regular calendar of events that she brings around every so many years that admin looks at.
Other questions for the sheriff? I have a couple. Kevin, can you give us an update? I know that body cams were budgeted for last year. Where do we, where are we in the process of getting the cams and implementing? And I know there's going to be some cost in terms of handling the data that comes along with that.
Yeah, we're all set to go. Hopefully we'll have them here the first couple of weeks of January, honestly. We've been studying them over the last year. The cameras that we're going with are WatchGuard. They're the same as our in-car cameras. They'll integrate together. A few bugs to work out. We've been demoing one, demoing two actually, and been kind of settled on the one that is preferred by the user from downloading end and things like that. So it'll actually, the body camera will work as the mic pack as well for the in-car camera. So it'll capture both, and we're already set up for wireless download with that. We pull into the highway shop up at 25 and 64 here at my office or down at Rock Falls at the highway office or highway shop down there, and it automatically grabs the video from the squads and wirelessly downloads that to the network. So the body cams hopefully will be here in the first couple weeks of January. We're all set. As soon as the clock or the calendar flips, we can get them purchased.
Good. Once this COVID thing is over and we can all meet in person, you can have one of your officers come in and take our pictures.
That sounds good.
Dave, question?
Yeah, that brings up another question I just thought of. Does it downloads to your system? Does it also end up getting downloaded to the district attorney? Can she go into that system too, or is that not? That doesn't work that way.
Well, we have the capabilities of sharing it with her office. Unfortunately, her internet speed through the state is so poor that they can't use the system the way it would to its capabilities.
Right. I remember that now. Thank you.
You bet.
Are there any issues about privacy, and not even privacy necessarily, but access to information that one officer or another? I mean, I'm sure these tapes would not be available to the general public on any routine basis, but
well, really, they kind of are. They're a record, and they're subject to open records request. Problem with that, and that was included in our 2021 budget as well, as we need to redact. If I'm going to pick up a driver's license and look at it, my body camera is also going to capture that. Well, we have to redact that information off from the driver's license from a video before it can be released to the public. So there's a redaction software that we need to include with that to the tune of $14,000 or $15,000. So that's going to take staff time to, if somebody requests a video through an open records request, they'll have to sit down, go through the video and redact anything that's visible. Could be pornographic material, anything along that lines that would need to be redacted before it can be released.
Yeah, thank you. One other update, and that's on Marshall's pet project. What's the name of the board that he's
Crime
helping us?
Stoppers?
Pardon me?
Crime Stoppers?
Yeah, the board that would award the grant money.
Yep.
What's the name of that?
Crime Prevention Board.
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank here.
We're getting pretty well set up with that. All of the members in place. There's one that has to be selected yet, and that is voted by myself and all of the chiefs from the municipalities within the county have to vote somebody onto the board, whether that be one of the chiefs. I'm on automatically unless I delegate that. So it could be one of the other chiefs, or the way we understand it is it could be somebody nominated and voted on by myself and the chiefs in the county. So that's the last person to put in place. Technically, Judge Peterson isn't the senior judge, but as soon as Judge Smeltzer retires, he will be. So we don't see the point of putting Judge Smeltzer in place for 6 months and then having to replace him with Judge Peterson anyhow. So we're looking to move forward with Judge Peterson on that board.
Yeah, I think that in your case and in the judge's case, if not them, their designee, right?
Correct. Yep.
So that, yeah. I know that statutorily there are some timelines that have to be met, 3-4 months, something like that. So I've
Yep.
spoken to Marshall just briefly, and I know that he's been on it, but be interesting to stay abreast on this as well.
Yeah, we're hoping to have those board members put in place by the end of the year here. So Katie's office can start applying the $20 surcharge to that on convictions.
That's right. Does that start first of the year?
I think it's once the board is in place. Technically, it could start before the first of the year, but
Okay.
that's our goal.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Jail report. Brenda, are you with us?
Yes, sir, I am.
Ah, there she is. You're up.
Okay. Well, we're still running around 75 inmates about, and we are down one DOC inmate. They haven't replaced the one that they took, so we're only at 12. We got a new video phone system, which is being worked on by staff. The new vendor is ICS. They're replacing Legacy. Our kitchen manager, Sherry Bundrant, announced that she is resigning December 30th. She took a job at a 50-bed nursing facility in Rice Lake. We're pretty sad to see her go because she has done an excellent job. Her manager, John Hathaway, is looking for a replacement. I almost get the feeling that John is interested in coming back because his job requires a lot of traveling, and it would be a nice surprise if he would let me know that he's going to be back. The sheriff mentioned that we did get a second sanitation machine for the jail, and that is working out really well. And lastly, we're saying goodbye to Dunn County Human Services Mental Health. And we are getting back our old company, ACH, which we already have medical. We used to have mental health with them, but we are getting them back. So it'll be nice to all work together again. We had a good working relationship with them when they were there. So other than that, we still have the one staff person out sick. And I heard she's still struggling with it a little bit. So I'll find out more tomorrow when I come into work. That's all I have.
Questions for Brenda regarding the jail report? Brenda, what was the reason for the change in mental health provider?
Budgetary issues, and there was a little bit of a staffing concern that we had, and we just had a little struggle trying to work through it. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
And your report says you've got experience with ACH?
Yes, we initially had them before we went to Dunn County Human Services, and now they submitted an RFP interest in it, and it worked out well, so we got them back.
Is ACH a local company? Where are they out of?
They're out of Illinois.
Okay. But have a local office, obviously, somebody nearby.
Well, their office is in Illinois, but they have they go over, I believe it's 5 different states. They're quite a big company.
Okay. Other questions for Brenda?
Chairman, if I could ask real briefly, this is Andrea Nodoff. Brenda, when is the new IC taking over for the jail phone calls?
They've started right now. The last couple of weeks they've been installing, and we're working on the bugs, figuring things out.
And so are they still being recorded under legacy, or because I have asked law enforcement to keep an eye on some of those, so they need new accounts and need, in order to. ICS is up and running. We're just trying to figure out different aspects of the system yet. So. Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions for Brenda? All right, thanks to the sheriff and to Brenda for the Sheriff's Department jail report. Next up, Josie, child support.
Hello, everyone.
You are on.
All right. So I did submit a written report. Cheryl Lee Lundmark will be joining us a week from today, and I couldn't be more excited to get a legal secretary here and get someone trained in. We're really excited about her experience, not only in her studies, but she's coming to us from the Department of Corrections. So she has dealt with a very difficult caseload herself. So some of the difficulties that she may experience from the clients we serve will not be any skin off her nose whatsoever. She has motivational interviewing skills, and she's been a peer mentor. So I think she's going to be a great addition to our team. I'll skip and come back to the funding resolution towards the end here. So the Wisconsin Child Support Enforcement Association had their December board meeting, and I have been nominated and put on some committees. I sort of picked the ones I may have been interested in because some of them require travel on a quarterly basis to participate in. And, you know, right now we're not doing that because of COVID, but one day I think the world will go back to normal. So the committees that I'm going to be serving on don't have that travel component, so I can keep my budget in mind, but still be a voice for a smaller county, you know, on a state level. So I'm looking forward to that. And I'm also on a newly formed Dunn County group about mental health matters committee. It might be a subcommittee of the wellness initiative, but more so because, not that I'm an expert in mental health by any means, but I've been here 4 months and I've only ever really interacted with anybody via Zoom. But I was hoping to kind of branch out and maybe meet a few more people that way. So we'll see. I don't know what I'm going to do when we stop wearing masks around this building. I won't recognize anyone because I only recognize people from their nose up. But let's see, COVID. I'm going to knock on some wood here. My office has been spared with any illness or quarantining, but we are staggering the staff that are in the office. So it's kind of quiet around here day to day with only 2 to 3 of us here at a time. The budget's looking good, but again, a lot of things we didn't do travel-wise or conferences and that sort of thing. I'll loop back to the funding resolution. I know that's a item to be discussed towards at the end of the meeting, but the Wisconsin Child Support Enforcement Association is asking all county boards to voice their support for an ask of Governor Evers for an increase in our program funding in his next biennium budget. And then in addition to that, they're asking all agency directors to submit a personal letter to Governor Evers, also asking for his support in this ask. I didn't know if I needed judiciary and law approval or not before sending it, so I attached my draft letter for you all to review and I guess give me your feedback on that. And I think that's it.
Questions or comments for Josie? I do appreciate the fact that you shared the letter with us. It's not an action item, so we can't talk about either, recommending it or not, but
Okay.
it fits right in with our legislative agenda and program. So, and I thought the letter articulated the issue very well and our position on it. So I appreciate that. Also appreciate your willingness to participate in state and local organizations and committees. That's, I think there's something to be gained for you personally in that and for us as a county and for the organizations. I think this is one of those win-win-win situations.
I agree. If you're interested in learning more, I could tell you what some of these committees are. The awards and nominations, that's more of for our fall conference, which was canceled this year, but there's people can submit their nominees for county worker of the year, state worker of the year, lawyer, judge, legislature, whatever. And so there's a committee that's formed to go through all the nominations and then decide who's going to get their little plaque. I have one over here from 2018 myself. So I'm on that committee. The new background check compliance work group. So there's certain systems that we have access to as child support workers. The one that comes to mind right now is Department of Transportation. That once you have that access, you're supposed to have a background check done every 3 years. Apparently, there is not a good way to make sure counties are in compliance with that renewal thing. You would think the Department of Transportation would tell us, but whatever. So we got to come up with a plan to how to make sure counties aren't missing that renewal step of their background checks to keep having access to different things. The one I'm most excited about is the Child Support Bulletin Review Committee. So that's when there's a new policy change or statute change or guidance of any kind that's getting rolled out statewide, they do it in a child support bulletin. So that committee then, knows, I guess, what's coming down the pike a little sooner than everybody else. But we also have a hand in coming up with questions like, well, this isn't going to work. Did anybody think about this or how this is going to impact that and so on. And before we blast it out statewide. So I'm looking forward to being on that one.
Anybody have anything for Josie? We will take up the resolution a little later in the meeting as an action item, but for now, all right. Thank you, Josie. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Katie, last but not least.
Yeah, thank you. It's good to see everybody again. So I submitted my written report as well. I'll talk a little bit about our jury trials. We've only had 8 jury trials take place in 2020. That's a significant reduction in jury trials. Normally we have about 15 to 20 per year. So As Andrea had mentioned earlier, there'll be a lot more probably in 2021. I know there was costs or questions about the costs. So that line item in my budget, there's a lot of money left over for that. I'm not sure that I can do a carry forward for 2021, but I'll be speaking to the CFO about that because I do expect that if all the jury trials do take place in 2021, that we will have additional, we'll probably go over our budget for 2021. Right now we're in the process of getting our courtrooms upgraded. So courtrooms 3 and 4 are completed and the hearing room. So there's new TVs, new projection units. They're all connected to have video conferencing software, and all of the phone and audio systems are integrated into one. So previously in those courtrooms, if there was ever a participant by phone, we have the desk phone that sat there and we would just move a microphone over the speaker of the phone so that everybody could hear that participant. So now everything is loud and clear. The state also, as one of their projects, has required or requested that all courtrooms in the state of Wisconsin by the end of 2021 have DAR equipment. So it's digital audio recording devices. This is to assist with court reporters. There is a statewide shortage of court reporters in the state of Wisconsin. I believe right now about 65% of our court reporters are eligible for retirement in the next 5 years. And on average, there's only one new graduate for court reporting school in the state of Wisconsin each year. So the director of state courts believes at some point we may have to go to recording hearings versus actually having a physical court reporter in there stenographing all of the hearings. So those have been installed in all of the courtrooms, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the hearing room. Those will be used if we do not have a court reporter available to us. And then they are also used for all of our treatment court sessions. Normally our judges will go into our 3rd branch courtroom and use that device as well. Our staffing right now, we're continuing to work in and out of the office on a rotating basis. It's going well. It's definitely shifting work between people differently. So it's been challenging, but I think we're making it for the most part. We're still providing good customer service to the people entering the building. Court hearings are still being conducted by Zoom, and there are some in-person hearings as well if needed. We're going to start accepting passports in February. We've been on halt since March. We stopped doing that to reduce the amount of people coming in the building. And since people were really unable to travel, we stopped that. So all staffing had to do all of our full recertification. And then starting in February, we're going to start accepting passport applications again. Judge Smelter made his official announcement that he will be retiring. So July 31st will be his last day in office. There are candidates taking out papers for the branch 2 judge position and then for the branch 3 new circuit court position as well as of this time. Are there any questions or concerns?
Questions for Katie? David.
I guess just a question on the judges election. Are they both coming, on the same day for the election, or?
Yeah, they should be at the same time. The way it's been described to me is that it would be for Circuit Court Branch 2 and then Circuit Court Branch 3. So if there's if there's only 2 people that run, each person, they'll pick up their own branch. Now, if we have 3 people, there'll be a contested race for Branch 2 or for Branch 3, depending on who takes out papers. The papers need to be submitted to the state January 5th or 6th, I think so in the next couple of weeks here, we'll know whose names will make the ballot.
So do they have to name which branch they're going to run for? Can they run for both, or?
I was told they need to pick the circuit court branch that they're running for.
So okay.
I think that's correct. I think they have to designate what branch that they're running for.
Yes.
So if we had 2 people running, they could both pick the same branch and nobody run for the other one.
Yeah, hopefully they would communicate that. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think that's going to happen from what I'm hearing right now at this point. I know I've heard of 2 people for surely, one one of them have each designated a branch, and then I've heard of another person that's potentially running for branch 2.
Now,
Okay.
when is that election and the judge
Uh,
elected would
It's
take
an
office?
April election.
Oh, it's an April election?
Yep.
And they would take office then, oh, sure, if it has to be in January. But then they would take office when?
August 1st of 2021.
August 1st, okay.
Yep. So then what will happen is the judges normally go to a judging mentoring kind of school. They call it judicial education. So for about 2 weeks, they go to a judicial college, get kind of an overview of the circuit courts and different areas of the law that they might be handling. And then for about 2 weeks after that, they do mentoring with the judges in our district. So they'll get assigned to go view other judges, different case types. So really the whole month of August, we probably won't have 2 new bodies in our circuit court branches, or they'll be floating in and out. I'm in the process of working with our district court administrator as to how we're going to redivide all of our cases. So it's not set in stone as that all of Judge Smeltzer's cases will get divvied to the new branch 2 judge, and that some of Judge Peterson's will go to branch 2 or 3. It kind of depends on who wins the election, what their background is, their area, or if they have conflicts. So if they maybe practice in Dunn County and like when Judge Peterson took the bench, for example, he couldn't hear criminal cases for months. He couldn't hear any case from when he was the district attorney, regardless if he prosecuted the case or not. So it's going to be depending on who comes in here, what their background is, as far as what the caseload distribution is going to look like. I've worked with the judges and we have a calendar planned out. So right now our judges are on intake for 2 weeks. They'll be on intake for 2 weeks, and then they'll have 4 weeks of non-intake. So during that non-intake, that's when they'll schedule their jury trials, lengthy contested hearings, longer motion hearings. But as far as how that's all going to play out, it's going to depend who prevails at the election time, and then how we do the redistribution of the cases. And it might be something that we ask additional judges from other counties to assist with too. So by us getting the video conferencing equipment is key, because now depending what next spring, August looks like, I don't know if the judges will want to travel or if the state will let them. We might be doing court all remotely by video conferencing from other counties, or there's going to be a lot of hybrid methods coming up here in 2021 for us.
Well, it sounds like it's going to be a pretty exciting summer.
Yes, yeah.
Anything else for Katie before we move on? Don't see anything. Thank you, Katie.
Thanks.
And that concludes item 5 on the agenda, the staff reports. There is nothing for item 6 or 7. Item 8, consideration of resolutions. We have 2. The first is a resolution supporting allocation of funds for public safety. What's that? Can't remember what PSAP stand for. Public safety.
Public safety answering points.
Yeah.
Yep.
We've actually looked at this before. I think we passed this resolution or one very similar to it a couple of years ago. I suggested that we do it again. We can submit this now if we agree to forward this to the county board and they approve it. This will go to the newly elected legislature in January. Be on the governor's desk in time for him to include money in his budget. The timing on this, I think, is really good right now. So I would entertain a motion to approve this resolution and forward it to the county board.
I so move. Jim Zahns.
Jim Zahns moves.
I'll support it.
Bob seconds. Okay, we have a motion and a second. And Melissa, I think I saw your name light up. Were you interested in speaking to this?
Nope. I was just here if you had any questions.
Okay. Yeah, this is not new. And basically what it's doing is asking for some of the money that was originally designated for this purpose anyway, that has not been used for it, designated by the state legislature to get them to do it. One of the questions you might have is this Department of Military Affairs budget and how that fits in. And it was decided a couple of years ago that the Department of Military Affairs was the logical and best conduit for making these physical arrangements. And Melissa might want to speak to that, but I know when I first saw it in the original resolution a couple of years ago, it was a little bit confusing. Anybody have questions, comments, or anything about this resolution? It's pretty straightforward. Don't see any. Okay, then I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor of support for this resolution and forwarding it to the county board for approval, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Don't see any. Motion carries. Thank you, folks. And the second resolution, Josie referenced this, and the letter that she included in her report referenced this as well. And I would entertain a motion, and then if you have questions of Josie or if she has some commentary she'd like to share, we can do that. Would anybody like to make the motion to approve this resolution and forward it to the county board? Carl moves. Is there a second? Mike seconds. We have a motion and a second. Josie, anything you'd like to share with us regarding this?
No, I mean, I was really just here for questions. Like you said, it's pretty straightforward. It's a pretty big ask. So we'll see how it does. But, you know, if the counties are in support of it, you know, hopefully that will help. So.
This is not a new item either, actually, and I don't remember how closely this matches previous resolutions, but we are on record in the past as supporting increased funding for this.
Yeah, it was a smaller ask. I believe it was 2 years ago.
$1.5 million 2 years ago, was that what
Yeah,
it was?
that sounds right.
Yeah.
And I think it was $1.5 million total over the 2 years. And this is $4 million
for each fiscal year.
Each fiscal year, yes.
Yeah, on a biennial budget, so that would be 2 years. Again, pretty straightforward. The background information pretty much covers it. One of the things about money for child support is that in the long run, it really is a cost-effective. It's money well spent because it brings in other funding as well. We have a motion and a second. Are there any other questions, comments about this resolution? If not, all those in favor of the support for the resolution and forwarding it to the county board for approval, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Don't see anything. Motion carries. Thank you, folks. I skipped something though, didn't I? Item number 6, we were going to talk about meeting dates and times. I apologize for doing that. We have been over the past few years meeting on the 4th Monday of the month. Used to be 5 o'clock. We moved that forward to 4:30. I remember when we did that. Bob, you had some potential conflicts. As this 4:30 time worked out for you all right?
Yeah, the 4:30 works. 5 o'clock, but I'm still at work at 4 to 4:30. I get home at 4:30, so. But it might take me a little bit longer to get to, if we go live, I mean, back in meetings, it might take me a little bit to get to Menominee too, but.
Yeah, well, we'll have to think about that. Mike, I saw you light up there for a minute.
I was just gonna say, I don't mind 4:30. I like 5 a little better, but 4:30 works for me if it works for everyone else.
One of the things about 4:30 is it gets our staff out of here a little bit earlier in the evening, and I want to be sensitive to that. So if there's no real objection, I think we'll continue to meet on the fourth Monday of the month at 4:30 in the afternoon. We'll continue to do Zoom meetings until our health department tells us it's appropriate to meet in person. Our next meeting is scheduled for, I wrote it down here someplace, January 25th at 4:30. Anybody have any announcements? Don't see any. Then, hope everybody's holiday season has been pleasant, and I wish you a happy new year. 2021 has got to be better. And unless anybody has any final words of wisdom, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, folks.
Night, everyone.
Night.